Residents filed a lawsuit in 2010 claiming that they had been living with the bedbugs for years. The class action lawsuit stated that the managers said the buildings were safe to live in when they truly weren't.
So I think the message that this sends is that if a building has an introduction to bedbugs, that the management has to immediately remedy the situation. It cannot let an introduction turn into an infestation.
Lipman said around 200 claims have come in so far, and more keep coming in every day.
Bedbug infestations are on the rise, and the little bloodsuckers are spreading rapidly through the U.S. Their abilities to hitch a ride on humans or animals, lay eggs in a suitcase or a blanket, etc., and reproduce rapidly are creating serious problems for homeowners and property managers of all kinds. Many people think of hotels as a place to watch out for bedbugs, but they can be found just about anywhere. There are crevices and a host to feed on. Infestations have occurred in Broadway theaters, college dormitories, buses, trains, daycare, schools, and well, you get the point. Bedbugs are here to stay, but they can be effectively managed through early detection and a proper remediation. Bedbugs undergo a gradual metamorphosis, which means they start out as an egg, hatch into a nymph, and then shed exoskeletons 5 times into adulthood. Adults can lay 10 to 50 eggs that hatch in 6 to 17 days. This means that as many as 100 insects in the first month of infestation. Bedbugs are equipped with piercing, sucking mouthparts, but are not considered to be disease carriers. The piercing mouthparts consist of 2 stylets. One stylet allows the bedbug to ingest blood from the host. Through the other, saliva is injected into the feeding location. It is the saliva that can cause a familiar swelling and irritation on the outer skin of the host. Today, the Insider Exclusive goes behind the headlines in Bedbugs, What You Need to Know, to examine how Jeff Lipman at the Lipman Law Firm successfully represented 225 victims in a successful $2.45 million class action settlement against First Baptist Elderly Housing Foundation, First Baptist Housing Foundation, and American Baptist Homes of the Midwest. The operators of the 2 downtown Des Moines apartment towers whose low-income and disabled residents endured an infestation of bedbugs. The settlement's approval marked the final chapter of a legal battle for these victims who lived or once lived at L.C. Mason Manor and Lagoudy Tower in Des Moines, Iowa. Jeff used a 2009 state law called the private right of action to make the case. The law allows consumers to sue businesses that engage in deceptive practices, unfair practices, or misrepresentation, or that fail to disclose material facts. Iowa was the last state in the U.S. to enact such a law. The residents' legal fight had been through a gauntlet of proceedings since 2010. The lawsuit ended up at the Iowa Supreme Court, which had been asked to decertify the class action status. The court deadlocked, which meant a lower court's ruling allowing the class action status stood. According to 106 interviews and affidavits collected from current and former tenants for the lawsuit, roughly 68% of L.C. Mason and Lagoudy residents signed leases without being told about the bedbug issue. 65% of the tenants ended up with bedbugs in their apartment at least one time, according to the lawsuit. Roughly 54% said they'd been bitten by bedbugs at one of the buildings. This settlement sends a message to other landlords to act quickly at the first sight of bedbugs, because if they do not take this problem seriously, then the landlord is going to be held accountable. Jeff Lipman has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike in Des Moines, in Iowa, and across the nation. His goals, not only to get justice for his clients, but to make sure that everyone is treated with equal respect and dignity as guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. He has built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. His headline-grabbing success rate continues to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Des Moines, Iowa. It is my great pleasure to introduce Jeff Lipman to the show. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you.
Tell our audience a little bit about your firm. What kind of law do you practice?
We are a general practice firm. We have a heavy concentration in workers' compensation, personal injury, and nowadays bedbug litigation.
Bedbug, and that's why we're here today. We traveled all the way to Des Moines, Iowa, to find out about this. Is you were responsible for settling the first and the largest class action suit so far against people, landowners, who don't take care of their tenants and they got bedbugs in them, right?
That is correct.
Tell our audience a little bit about the lawsuit and some of the challenges you had to encounter.
Well, it's interesting. When I first got into this, we had a situation where a couple tenants of a building in Des Moines came looking for an attorney. They talked about bedbugs, and my only experience with bedbugs was the old fairy tale, sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
And I soon realized that this was a serious issue.
I mean, when they were showing you the bites in their arms and legs and stuff, that was real. It
was real.
Yeah.
And at first, when I was talking to these individuals that came in and visited with me, they talked about that they had, they saw these bed bugs, they were biting them, they were eating them. It was in the middle of the fall.
When folks come to you initially about a problem, the lawsuit is the avenue of last resort, isn't it?
That is correct.
You try to help them out with their current situation, and you discover that the management of these two buildings were non-receptive to anything, right?
That's correct. When we got involved initially, the tenants of the buildings had for years been complaining about bed bugs. Management was non-responsive to their concerns.
Yeah.
It got to the point where the entire two superstructures were completely overrun by bed bugs, and management was doing little to nothing about the problem.
And I understand as soon as you filed your lawsuit, about a day or 2 days after that, the president of the company came out, right?
That's correct.
In other words, it took a lawsuit to get him motivated, right?
Yes, without the lawsuit, nothing would have been done.
So you sued on behalf of, I think there was like initially there was 20 people. It ended up being about over 200 people. I think it was 225 people in the class. But tell us the problems that you had in the journey of trying to get justice.
Correct. Actually, the class was about 500 individuals altogether that spanned the entire class period.
Yeah.
The real challenge in bedbug litigation is that people don't want to admit that they have bedbugs.
Yeah.
There's a stigma that goes along with having bedbugs. If someone knows you have bedbugs and you try to move to another place, they won't take you because of the bedbugs.
Really?
So people don't want to admit that they have bedbugs, and a lot of people just don't know they have bedbugs. They think they have mosquito bites. They just don't want to come to the realization that they've been infested with bedbugs.
What are some legal challenges you had? You tried to certify this as a class, correct?
Correct.
And what happened?
Well, the legal challenges in a class action is that you have to prove that this is a building-wide infestation, that the individual issues do not predominate over the class issues, which is that this affects everybody.
Yes. They have a common problem.
Absolutely.
And the reason you want to file a class action is because filing these suits individually would be really non-productive, right?
Well, the reason why we filed it as a class action is because we wanted to be able to get compensation to the most or the majority of people that we could.
Yes.
As an individual case, you could resolve individual disputes, but it doesn't deal with the class-wide dispute.
Yeah.
It doesn't deal with the building remediation. It doesn't deal with the protocols that the management is going to be responsible to adhering to after the lawsuit resolves itself.
And eventually what happened?
Eventually, we were able to get this class certified. The certification went up to the Supreme Court of Iowa. The case got affirmed by the Supreme Court of Iowa, and we eventually were able to settle the case for $2.45 million.
Yeah. I want to bring out something interesting when you say it was affirmed by the Iowa Supreme Court. That was only in respect to whether this was a class or not. It really wasn't dealing with the issue of bed bug bites and the injuries it caused people, correct?
Correct. It was whether or not this was a building-wide issue that could be litigated on a class-wide basis,
Yeah.
as opposed to hundreds of individual lawsuits.
Right. I understand that in the execution of this case, you hired an outside consultant, Dr. Stuart Mitchell. He's also an entomologist, and we have him here today. So let's bring him on and get his take on this. It is my great honor to introduce Dr. Stuart Mitchell. Welcome to the show, Stuart.
Thank you.
You're known as Doc, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're an entomologist as well as a medical doctor, aren't you?
Correct.
And you were brought in this case specifically. What did you add to this case?
I think I added the public health significance of this. It's been an explosive problem.
Yeah.
And it can sort of march across the United States, and I think we have yet to see its significance. I think we're beginning to see underlying aspects of it and become much, much more profound as time goes by.
Mm-hmm. So did you write an opinion that was submitted to the court?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Per instruction, yes.
And in your opinion, you stated what? That this is a problem that needs to be dealt with immediately because?
An imminent danger to the inhabitants.
Yes.
Being repetitively fed upon by a blood-seeking, blood-feeding insect
Right.
lacking predators.
Right. What is the lifespan of a bed bug? I'm just curious.
The numbers vary
But
between
there's so many of them.
yeah, between the laboratory strains and field strains, but it varies from a few months to
Yeah.
over a year.
And what is the worst situation that can, because some of these people were living with bed bugs for years, weren't they?
Absolutely.
I mean, they were being bitten every single day and they were living with it.
And every day you go without treatment, every
Yeah.
day you go without remediation, you're losing time.
Yeah.
And one of the most important lessons of this is
Yeah.
that the cheapest time that a landlord has or hotel has to deal with a problem
Yeah.
is the day that they know they have a bed bug infestation, because every day that it goes untreated,
Yeah.
they lose time.
As a medical doctor, what kind of treatment do they have to get? Just get away from the bed bugs, or do they have to take some medicine or get a shot, or what?
Well, with bed bugs, there are a constellation of symptoms as a result.
Yeah.
The technical term is semicosis. It's just being repetitively fed upon by bed bugs.
Yeah.
The primary aspect is to relieve pressure and eliminate the bed bugs so that we don't have the repetitive feeding issue. But beyond that, it's treated symptomatically. Generally, allergic reactions.
It'll go away after a while.
Correct.
There's no long-lasting damage to the body, is there?
Well, it's in certain cases been determined that there's some psychological, some post-traumatic stress type things that are involved with bed bugs and being
Yeah.
exposed to bed bugs.
What is the longest period of time that one of your clients was living in this kind of a situation?
You know, we have a case in California where the clients have been living with it for literally almost 10 years.
So the way you prove the problem, one of the ways you prove it, is you have to have victims come forward who say, yeah, I was living in there 10 years ago and I was being bit by the bugs. How do they prove that they were bit by bugs 10 years ago?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, I think that it comes to it's an evidentiary issue.
Yeah.
If the bugs have been there for 10 years and you've known about it for 10 years and you haven't done anything to rectify the problem for
Yeah.
10 years, whatever that time is, people are going to get bit.
Can you tell how long bed bugs have infested an area?
One can begin to sort of formulate a hypothesis, if you will.
Yeah.
One of the ways we do that is bed bug populations, how well established they are. We do certain things called refuge accounts, or where they're little harborages where they've created little colonies, if you will. The numbers of those per given area can be a strong indicator. And then there's, of course, the complaint-driven aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking time to be on our show, because this is a serious problem everywhere I go. You know, we travel a lot. I'm always looking behind the mattresses, and I discovered doing some research on the show that not only are they on mattresses, but sometimes they can be in the crevices of sofas. Correct?
Correct.
They can be in desks.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
They can live in desks too. They can be everywhere.
Literally.
I'm just curious, as a result of these lawsuits that are ongoing in the United States, are more hotels checking into this problem?
Yes,
They are.
I think that most hotels and apartment complexes are getting to be inspection-based when it deals to bed bugs. They're starting to inspect places when they flip rooms, when people transfer from apartments to apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and important in this is to understand that bed bugs don't see walls like we do. They look at them as hiding places. So the fact that a bed bug's in a room and you find that room doesn't mean that it isn't building wide.
Yeah.
Because a bed bug goes under the walls, they go into the electrical units.
So you find it in one room, it's in other rooms.
More than likely, yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for being on the show, Doc. I really appreciate your input. Thank you. We have with us two of your clients, actually a couple more of your clients. I think Sue Reynolds and Dusty Donaldson, is that it?
Correct.
And we're going to bring them on right now so they can tell their own personal experience. So let's do that right now. It's my great pleasure to introduce Sue Reynolds and Dusty Donaldson to the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Well,
So you're the victims. You live with these bed bugs, right?
oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. And how long did you live, both of you, how long did you live there, you know?
I was only there 2 years.
And what about you,
I'm
Dusty?
just about 6.
6 years. And every day you'd wake up with bites? And did you go down and complain to the management?
I wasn't much of a complaint. I just lost my wife and I started itching. I didn't know nothing about it until my neighbor told me about it.
Okay. But you, I understand, Sue, you are an instigator, aren't you? I understand that you had it up to here, and you did what?
I took some live bed bugs that I got out of my mattress, and I went down to the manager because he refused to treat my apartment,
Yeah.
and I threw them on him.
Okay. So when you say he refused to treat, what would he say to you?
Well, it'll be 2 weeks, and then a week later it'll be 3 weeks,
Yeah.
on and on.
Right. And you put him in a jar, I understand, or a bottle,
Yeah, a little glass jar.
and you threw him. What did he do?
He got pretty upset.
Yeah.
I wanted him to take one bed bug home.
Yeah. And you were hoping they would stick on him, right?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
apparently, but I was just so angry.
Now, you know, the reason we do these shows all around the country is folks like yourself were injured, were victimized, something like that. But I always like to bring out one point. You have never been in a lawsuit, involved with a lawsuit ever, have you?
Oh, no.
You wouldn't think about, what do you think when you think suing someone is kind of like, it's very, it might be stressful, right?
It is, a little bit.
In this particular case, what you guys did, because I understand that you helped gather other people together, really helped a lot of people, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
And that was the motivation.
yeah. I always ask this question, you know, this case went on for 4 or 5 years, and your lawyer had to bear the expenses of this, and he didn't know whether he was going to win or not, you know? What's your opinion of Jeff?
He's our hero.
Yeah?
He didn't charge us a dime this whole 5 years.
Right. What's your opinion?
I think he was a good guy. I enjoyed with him, and he helped out a lot.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being here. I'm glad to see you're healthier, and we wish you the best of luck. And congratulations, you are a great-grandmother now?
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations.
I'm surprised I lived this long.
Okay, well, you have many more years ahead of you. Dusty told me that. All right, thank you. It's my great pleasure to introduce Bud Terrell. Bud, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much.
I understand you also were a tenant at these apartments, correct?
Yes, sir, Lagudi Towers.
Yeah. And you lived there how long?
Since the building was built, my wife and I, we've been there.
So that would have been, what, 10 years or so?
Oh no, that's well over 25.
25 years. When you first knew that you were being bit by these bugs, what'd you do about it?
I caught some of them and I took them to the office. First I called the office, you know, I called management. And they denied it and they said, no, it's just gossip, it's hearsay. Well, I took the jar over the very same day.
Yeah.
And Frank Spurrell was not there. He was a administrator at the time. But I went to Pat, who was the coordinator. I took her and I showed her, and she said she'd show him to Frank, and it never happened.
I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, Bud.
I know one thing, if I ever need a lawyer, this guy's got it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Thanks,
sir.
Bud.
One final question, Jeff. You get a lot of calls from people. I mean, you've been in the news. How do you choose your cases and your clients when there are so many people that have problems?
The primary focus that we look at is to determine whether, first of all, whether or not the apartment, management, or hotel is liable. And having bed bugs in and of itself doesn't give rise to liability. You have to look at, was there adequate inspection?
Yes.
Was there adequate warning? Is there adequate repair? And if those three elements are present where there's not adequate warning, adequate inspection, adequate repair, then we seriously look at entertaining taking these people on as clients.
All right, very good. I want to thank you very much for being on our program.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.